Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying time is here. That's right, we're talking about April Fool's Day on Kill by Kill. Well, greetings and salutations, Internet. It's your old pal Patrick Hamilton coming to you once again from some island somewhere. This is the Kill by Kill podcast, where we are dedicated to celebrating the least discussed component of any horror film, the characters. And today we're going to unpack all the goriest detail of 1986's horror comedy April Fool's Day in the hopes that a soon-to-be college graduate's untimely end, but not, is just the beginning of the jokes we can make at their expense. Or not. And as always, there's only one person I trust to pick out the right S&M gear for me. The one, the only, Gina Radcliffe. How are you doing today, Gina?
I know I'm good. I just, ran my face into an outboard motor. No
Sure.
big.
As you do.
Just a flap is hanging off of me.
A flap that you can take off your face and just slap on somebody else's face with one piece.
Just like a piece of chicken skin.
So, just to do some table clearing here. This is kind of a new theme month for us. Now, we're starting it a little bit early. It's going to be Horror CoMAYdy May is our new theme month. And we were trying to kind of come up with a bouillabaisse of interesting horror comedies. Some thought of well, some that are genuinely funny classics, and some that might miss the mark entirely. And try to determine out of that, is this really a viable subgenre? Because I think it's the toughest sort of wire act in my estimation, to actually balance these things.
Any movie can proclaim itself to be a horror comedy,
right?
But it is very difficult to ideally you want your horror movie to be a little scary. Yeah. And where most horror comedies miss the mark is in the actually being scary part.
Yes. I think this has a bit of a cult to it because it really didn't find its audience in theaters, despite, pulling a profit to a certain degree. It wasn't the amount of success that they wanted. But this also comes at a time when in the 80s, there's a fair amount of horror comedies that did do rather well. We have not covered American Werewolf in London because of, the whole manslaughter element of its director. I'm sure we will get to it eventually, probably when we dip into werewolves. That said, I still think that is the premier example of a horror comedy that is both genuinely scary and genuinely funny. And a lot of that humor comes from a character-based type of comedy.
Right. It is the absurdity of the situation that it is mined for the humor.
And of course, we'll be discussing next week an episode we actually already recorded on The Cabin in the Woods, another very successful horror comedy, which manages to balance jokes and some amount of scares, if not it's not a super hard, scary movie, but I do think there are elements of it that play rather well. It's definitely one of the more successful comedies in the horror comedy genre. So this, however, because it has this cult, there's this estimation that people really enjoyed it at the time. But one of the weirder aspects of this was sold to audiences as an out-and-out slasher movie.
Right. They, as you use the phrase, hide the weenie pretty well as to what kind of movie this actually was.
I don't think, I keep saying Sony, it's Columbia at the time. I'm not really sure they exactly knew what they had on their hand. And it's an interesting sort of build up to the filming of this because, you kind of have to ask yourself, how does anyone in the arts ever follow up a hit? It's really not that easy to find success, whether it's in movies or television or music or any other form of the arts. Once you've tasted success, finding it again might feel even harder. And of course, the person I'm talking about in this success column is the producer of this motion picture, a person whose work we have talked about a lot on the show, but I don't know that we've really discussed the man, Frank Mancuso Jr.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a ton of opinions about someone whose Friday the 13th work we basically, this show is based on.
I mean, that's going to be his legacy.
Yes. he was the son. He's a bit of a, a Nepo baby in that he was the son of Frank Mancuso Sr., who's a longtime Paramount exec who worked his way up the chain of command at Paramount during its biggest boom periods, working under titans of the industry like Robert, you still got a little on your nose, Evans, and very high concept Diller. And not to mention the fact he worked alongside major players in the industry for decades to come, such as Michael Eisner, Jeffrey Katzenberg, Don Steele, Jeffrey Bruckheimer, the mound of cocaine known as Don Simpson. All of them would make huge impacts in the entertainment industry. And so would Mancuso Sr. He was the person in charge of acquisitions in 1980 at Paramount. So he purchased a little movie for the studio that you probably want to examine one day if we really wanted to call ourselves a horror podcast. It's called, just going to check my notes. Oh yeah, Friday the 13th. And a mere 11 months later, after that first movie's premiere, the sequel hit theaters, and a young Frank Mancuso Jr. was installed as a producer for the franchise going forward for Paramount. He kind of shepherded each iteration of the series from half-baked concepts to the half-baked films. But how would Junior show Senior that he was really ready for bigger assignments other than digging up a fish toilet skeleton of Jason Voorhees every year? Well, his first chance came in the form of a movie after Friday the 13th 3D success. Paramount said, we need you to dig up something out of the Paramount library and just slap some 3D on that shit and make us a mint. And so Mancuso's first pitch was to remake, buckle up, Gina, was to remake Rosemary's Baby in 3D.
Sure.
I don't know that movie is built for 3D fun. You know what I mean? Like, what is going to be coming at you in Rosemary's Baby other than Satan thrusting into a drugged woman?
I mean, if they were going to do the original movie cut into 3D, I mean, you get that fisheye view of Ruth Gordon. That's just going to be harrowing in the third dimension.
Absolutely. That was Ixnay from the Brass.
Was this in the same period that we were doing 3D again, like Jaws? Yes. 3D? Okay.
Friday the 13th 3D had come out in 82 and had done so well in comparison to Part 2, which weirdly just comes out in a glut in the marketplace. And it came out the same month as The Burning, as Happy Birthday to Me. There's just a lot of stuff happening. And I think it makes a third of what the original did. It made enough to clear, what it cost by a long shot, but it also wasn't the level of hit they were expecting. But there was so much competition. In 3D, they invest a little bit more in it, but they get so much more in the back end of it. And so they're like, oh, okay, just come up with something cheap that we can do. And so what Mancuso's pitch eventually became was combining the Invisible Man shtick of the Universal monster movies and the you've got the wrong guy sort of thriller caper. And you put that all together with a pre-Police Academy Steve Guttenberg, and you've got The Man Who Wasn't There. And you know what also wasn't there? Anyone who wanted to see it.
I was going to say the audience.
Yeah. I mean, just to put this into perspective, Gina, Leonard Maltin, a man who once gave Laser Blast 2.5 stars, stated, quote, better writing, directing, and acting can be found at your average nursery school pageant. Wow. That is a guy who likes movies. He enjoyed flickering images, and he couldn't be bothered with The Man Who Wasn't There. So after this, Mancuso does what the Paramount brass demands, and he kills off the Friday the 13th franchise with the final chapter. But that makes so much more money than the last two editions that he's also forced to resurrect it with a new chapter in 1985. And at that point, Mancuso is just desperate to find anything that is his and his alone that'll become a bona fide hit. And since horror is his main calling card, he kind of goes out on his own beyond Paramount here and tries to take a stab at a different kind of slasher. And his idea is like, why don't we have a movie that avoids MPAA ratings by kind of dialing down the gore so much and maybe dialing up the comedy. But, and some exec goes, whoa, you're still going to tie it to a specific day, right? It's got to be a day, right? And he's like, oh, yeah, sure. We'll call it April Fool's Day. And so here we are. That's the origin of this movie. And so he calls a guy he's a screenwriter with the most insane litany of 70s stories. He's just one of those only in the 1970s sort of careers, named Danilo Bach. This guy was originally commissioned by Don Simpson to write the first version of Beverly Hills Cop that is so insanely far afield of what eventually hits screens that it might as well be Cobra. But because he names the main character Axel, he gets the characters created by credit for every Beverly Hills Cop project that ever comes afterwards. If you want to know more about his version and how it transformed into the Beverly Hills Cop you all know and love, I would highly recommend the episodes from Best Movies Never Made. It's a great show, and it's very interesting, his backstory. But Danilo Bach is the guy who sort of comes up with the framework for what April Fool's Day is. And he's trying for big characters. But there's also one other pitch here that I think is important for our audience to completely understand. This script is developed in the shadow of the Brat Pack.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say that there's a lot of 80s teen movie also rans in here.
Yes.
You've got Deborah Foreman, a Valley girl who the entire time I was rewatching it, she reminded me so much of Cheryl Lee from Twin Peaks.
Oh yeah.
They had a very similar look.
Yes, especially when she's mouth agape in Silent Scream. You can just transpose the two's faces.
And you've got Clayton Rohner. You actually got two actors from just one of the guys. You have Clayton Rohner and you have Deborah Goodrich, I think. You have Griffin O'Neill, late of The Wraith.
Yeah.
You have Ken Olant, who played the high school student / stripper in Summer School.
That's right.
There's a lot of quasi-familiar faces in here, if you're people our age.
They existed. I don't know that any of them truly ascended.
You've got Biff from Back to the Future.
Back to the Future. Certainly the most recognizable face to modern audiences, simply because Back to the Future still has juice in our culture.
But he looks, in keeping with the contemporary setting, just looks like a regular guy.
So this movie sort of takes a little from column A, a little from column B. It's not trying to be a teen movie. These are all about to be college graduates. So it's more in the Friday the 13th vein in terms of what their age range is supposed to be. They're not completely without some level of responsibility, but they also have the driftless nature of, I don't know what to do after. And that seems to be a constant theme throughout. In fact, it has more shades of St. Elmo's Fire than I think any other movie we've ever covered.
Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, for in a rarity, I actually bought these people as friends.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, what they do to each other isn't very nice.
Right.
But I do buy that these people have known each other for a while, and we could conceivably spend the weekend together at this, this island home.
Right. This island manse, as it were. So one other element that I think we need to set up here, we don't have to explain it entirely, because I think I'd rather do that towards the end. But there's one thing that our audience might have watched the movie once upon a time. They might not know the entire story. But here's the deal. The movie we watched is 30 minutes shy of its intended finished product.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I like this movie. I don't know that it need to be an extra half an hour, though.
Because what is ultimately the third act is stealthily the end of the second act. Because there's an entire continuation of this that goes on afterwards that they film, but decided, no, this is neither fish nor fowl. I don't think making a real horror movie out of this after the fact is going to be what saves the day. Why don't we just try to fool people into thinking it's a slasher movie? And so that's what they attempted to do. I don't think it helped the movie, but I'm also unconvinced that the ending that we have never seen would have helped matters at all.
I actually did see this in the theater. I guess I would have had to been 13 or 14. Mm-hmm. And I wish I could tell you because that was 800 years ago. I mean, obviously, I didn't know going in what the twist was, so I'm sure I must have been surprised. I do remember liking it and thinking it was a fun movie. I hazard to say it didn't need it didn't need to be any different than it was. I mean, is it an underseen gem? I mean, really? I mean, it's fine. I enjoyed it.
I think what works in this movie that we have lamented many times in other slashers is that we are presented with genuine characters. Now, I don't know that they're all beyond the surface characters, but everyone has decided to do a specific thing with their character. And as such, despite this movie being so lily white.
Oh yeah, this might be one of the whitest slasher movies we've covered.
To the point where characters are named Muffy and Kit and Skip. It's just, that's part of the package that is there in the script that they're realizing on screen. I enjoy the character elements of this and the sort of slow build to when the inserted slasher movie tropes begin to occur. I don't know that all the jokes land, but I do believe that everyone who's on screen actually knows the kind of movie that is supposed to be made.
Oh, yeah. In both meanings of the phrase, everybody is in on the joke.
The only other person that we haven't discussed here is the director, Fred Walton. And while he doesn't have like a long history of a ton of horror content, the horror movies that he did make, have substance to them. He has the original 79 When a Stranger Calls, which a lot of people remember the opening of that movie because it's one of the best openings of any movie of all time. What they don't remember is the movie keeps going on after that. It's pretty, the rest of it is wildly unmemorable. Yeah. And he sort of continues in that vein for a lot of things. In terms of features, this was kind of like the second to last that he does. Believe it or not, the sequel, When a Stranger Calls, was, I think, made for Showtime. And it also has an insane opening that then goes on to be a different movie that's more of an investigation. And it is hardcore. I don't know what we'd make fun of it for if we were to ever cover it. I don't know how we would talk about either Stranger Calls or When a Stranger Calls Back. I don't think I've seen the sequel. I would say that the original is more of a thriller than a straight up horror movie. Well, the thing that everyone thinks about as the big twist at the end of the movie happens 15 to 20 minutes into it. And then an entire movie happens after that. And then you could basically see that entire sequence in Terror in the Isles. And of course, I think he had made a previous short film version of it called The Sitter before that. And then When a Stranger Calls is like, can you make a movie out of this? And the answer is kinda. But his legend looms large. But I don't think he's one of those people that you'd put on the horror sort of Hall of Fame. He's not what I would call one of the masters of horror necessarily. So in terms of the movie and its characters, is this like one of the first semi-found footage horror movies? Because I can't think of a lot of horror films before this that start with video cameras. I mean, I always think of found footage horror as, all of the characters end up dying and this is what's left over of it. True. Yeah. So I think that's kind of what qualifies it as what qualifies something as a found footage movie. Like this is all that's left to tell the horrible tale. But you do wonder if upon seeing this, someone said, now, if you made the whole movie that might be something. And then it becomes a whole fucking genre. I'm not saying that, somebody didn't see it and found inspiration. I'm just not sure if I would consider this a found footage movie. Makes sense. So let's start with our cast here because they're all waiting to get onto a ferry boat. Oh my God, Gina, it's another ferry boat. Mm-hmm. Oh no, it's another one. They won't stop getting on ferries. It never you go to like murder mansions. You go to where the giant rats. You go to Staten Island. Yeah, we start with Nikki, played by Deborah Goodrich, rather, and to me, if we're going to slide these people into Brat Pack archetypes. I believe she is the Molly Ringwald based exclusively on costuming. She has like a grandmother's couch doily stapled to every other piece of clothing she wears in the film.
And maybe she actually inspired Molly Ringwald, because this is kind of more of the look Molly had in Pretty in Pink, which would have come out. Actually, no, I think this actually would have been.
It might be contemporary.
Yeah,
I think this is just fashion, is what's happening.
Yeah, this was just like that thrift shop fashion that never really bore itself out in real life.
Right.
Until much later.
Right, yeah. And then we have Kit, played by Amy Steele, who everyone will know from Friday the 13th Part 2. And I would say her character's slightly a bit of an outlier in terms of a direct back and forth. Could she be the Demi of the crew? I don't really know. She doesn't fit into an obvious role, but I also don't think anyone else in the cast is the Demi.
No.
Then you have Tom Wilson as Skip. As we mentioned earlier, probably know him from Back to the Future. He was also a big stand-up, well, I wouldn't say big. I would say up-and-coming stand-up comedian. He had done the HBO Young Comic special, and he was kind of contemporaneously doing movies and stand-up at the same time. And maybe he's kind of an Emilio, but I think for the most part, he is hitting the Joker horror trope more than the Brat Pack.
Yeah, there's a little touch of Emilio, more specifically Emilio in St. Elmo's Fire, as you pointed out earlier.
Right.
He's sort of a little bit bumbling, but generally a goofy, harmless guy.
Although I will say, I did not remember the gay stereotype humor. The gay panic in the first half of this film revisits over and over and over again. Like Tom Wilson's like, guess what, guys? I've got a new stereotype I can do. And it's gay stereotype. And he just continues to hit this note over and over again. And it is never funny.
Well, I mean, that's kind of 1986 in a nutshell for you.
Truly. It's not that it's out of place. It's sadly in the place where it happened most often. Then we've got Deborah Foreman, and she is both our Muffy that we think is in the entire movie and secretly is, but she's also playing Buffy. And she, weirdly enough, is playing the two halves of the Ali Sheedy character. So, like, she's cleaned up and she's messy. She reverse puts the glasses on. She's like, oh, we'll get your hair out of your face at first. And then she's like, oh, I'm going to put the hair in my face. Now I'm a mess. And I will say, she commits to the bit throughout this movie. She is really going for it here.
Oh, yeah.
At the beginning of the movie, they have this whole shtick where she looks at this Jack in the Box that contains some sort of rabid animal in it. Like, where do you find this?
Yeah, she's very wary of this box.
She's both wary, but also wants to open it. And you're like, who is this for? Is this for me? Is this for the audience? But it really transports her mentally. But I will say, I think Foreman has the secret sauce in this movie. If she isn't able to sort of carry the transformation, both subtly and the moments where she's really, really big, I don't think this works at all. This is very Deborah Foreman dependent.
Yes.
And then we're introduced to a character named Nan, who's our button-up type. She obviously is the most direct comport to Mayor Winningham.
Oh, yeah, totally. Like, there should be a scene where she's got the chick snaps the girdle.
Right. She is really prim, really proper, has something in her past which she's trying to outrun and doesn't. But we'll get to that. Then we have Clayton Rohner, as we mentioned earlier, late of Just One of the Guys. Also, Nightwish, a movie we just talked about ever so briefly on Patreon. And would go on to sort of tumble into a long career, never quite blowing up, but always being a lovely presence. And I think primarily known for his amazing hair.
Yes, he has good hair in Just One of the Guys.
Mm-hmm.
He had good hair in what's it called, Modern Girls.
Oh, sure, yeah. I believe so, yeah.
Which it might be the most aggressively 80s movie of all time that didn't actually become an iconic 80s movie, if that makes sense. But he has, I think
it flies way under the radar.
Yeah, he's at peak hair in this, I think, though.
I mean, it sticks up on top and sticks out on the sides and it continues into a luxurious mullet. I mean, the man had a head of fucking hair. And so I think in between the whole, hair and sniffing ladies when they're not looking, I think we're looking at a Rob Lowe.
Oh, he's totally Rob Lowe in St. Elmo's Fire. Absolutely. Yes. Like he's just missing the saxophone.
That is the only component of this that he is missing.
Yeah. He like you know how like there's always a dude 80s movies that like has like a necktie but no shirt, like it's just the tie's like tied around his neck. That's this guy.
He's definitely the cool guy party animal. Mold. And later on in the movie, Deborah Foreman's character describes Chaz thusly. Chaz is sweet, but he only has two expressions: call her up and call her down. Damn, son, you've been cooked. Holy shit. Oh my God. Call the Sandman with that hook and take you off stage because it is no longer showtime at the Apollo for you. Then we are introduced to Skip, and Skip's played by Griffin O'Neill, a guy with a very tragic real life story that I think is a very big bummer. I don't think we're going to get into here, but he is sort of prognosticated here as the quote unquote dangerous type. He has the most danger out of everybody. So while he's not a physical match, I think he is fitting into the Judd Nelson of the group.
Yeah.
He's both, he's like attached to rich people, but of course, tells everybody that he is distant family, the poor end of the family. And so while he's appreciative of being included, he also knows that he doesn't quite belong.
Yeah. So, but I could also say that he is a parallel to a Rob Lowe character from another movie, and that movie is the cable classic Masquerade.
Oh, you're absolutely right. The Rob Lowe's don't end, though, Gina, because we have Kit's boyfriend, who will not make it into medical school. And Rob is also kind of a Rob Lowe.
Mostly because he's just the pretty boy.
Yes. He is the one who's been asked to be in tighty-whities the most out of the entire cast.
Oh yeah, I mean, the director knows what the audience is going to want to look at,
and he delivers. God love him, he delivers. And then I think the real outsider here is Hal Jr. He is not really core to the friend group. He's more of an outlier, and I guess because he's the up and comer, he's the Andrew McCarthy. Shoulder shrug.
I mean, is he that, or is he, a secret Anthony Michael Hall in the Breakfast Club?
He's not funny the way Anthony Michael Hall is, and he's also not as much of a loser who can't shut up.
I was gonna say, he does kind of bring the sad sack element that Andrew McCarthy in St. Elmo's Fire brings.
He's so thirsty for wealth and sort of has a business plan for himself that just sort of fits a multitude of Andrew McCarthy roles over the years. Where he's like, listen, I don't believe that a human being would pretend their dead boss is still alive so they can party with ladies. Unless Andrew McCarthy's involved, then I'd believe it. That motherfucker would try to get away with anything.
Did you ever see that? You ever see that documentary he did last year?
I did not.
Where one critic said a semi-mean thing indirectly about him, and it just blew his fucking mind and ruined his life.
I did not. I was out to a movie with Ollie, and Becky watched it without me. And I'm like, okay, you can sum it up for me, and I think it'll be just as delightful because she'll, do all the voices and everything. But it sounded to me like everyone that he interviewed was like, Andrew, buddy, get the fuck over this.
Yeah, I have to tell you that the conversation between him and Emilio Estevez was so uncomfortable because like Emilio Estevez had the body language of someone entertaining an Amway salesman.
Oh, wow,
He's
yeah.
like arms crossed, just sort of like, when is it? Are we done yet? I cannot believe I let you in my kitchen.
You are somebody I used to know. It's the kind of vibe that Emilio Estevez, and the trailer almost sets it up like the one person who doesn't want to talk to me is Emilio Estevez. And then you cut to Emilio Estevez and his face says, I don't want to talk about this. And I certainly don't want to talk to you about this.
Multiple people did not want to talk to him about it. Molly Ringwald did not want to talk to him about it. Judd Nelson did not want to talk about it. Demi Moore, was very sweet to him. Sort of, lightly insinuated that he could benefit from some therapy.
Good for her. I find it utterly delightful. You never really know where people are going to land in life. And certainly Demi Moore has had a lot of shit come her way. And out of that group, you could pretty much say she's the shining star out of it. She had the biggest launching pad into a sustained movie star career. She was a person you could launch a movie on. And then she wasn't. And then she kind of continued. And then she was kind of a celebrity wife. And now she's this wonderful person who can pull somebody aside that she did movies with in the 80s and go, buddy, get a grip.
And I think the other funniest part is when he's talking with Rob Lowe, and Rob Lowe's like, no, I had a great time.
Yeah, I think he has that drummer from Spinal Tap philosophy of have a good time all the time. I'm glad he's no longer pretending to be smart because all his kids are much smarter than him and seem to rip on his ass online constantly. He also has to fly to Ireland to film a fucking game show, for Christ's sakes, which I don't believe is something they need to do. It seems like a scam. Anyways, so the seeding of clues start almost right away, especially all of the articles that are in Hal's room. And then we have weird baby noises in Nan's room. We're seeding elements of creepy dolls everywhere. There's all these sort of lighthearted pranks that build into the harder core pranks. But there's one that seems to stand out as, what the fuck is this all about? And that is the baby noises in Nan's room.
Yeah.
Would it surprise you to know that is actually a holdover from the original version of this movie that contains another 30 minutes of material?
I would not be surprised because that is something where you think about it later and it occurs to you, oh, wait, this is kind of psychotic.
Yeah, it's fucking weird and mean in a movie that's not.
Yeah, it's like, spoiler, Nan had an abortion.
Right.
And so, the people or person involved in what ultimately is an extended prank as a setup to, turn your house into a murder mystery attraction, I guess, for, as like, okay, so are you going to find out something? Are you going to do recognizance on potential guests to find out what kind of shameful secret they might be keeping so you can torment them with it?
Well, that's the crazy thing. It is the complete outlier of all the seeding and the pranks. It is so personal when the rest of them are not. Right. And so let's talk about it here. The extended ending that was supposed to happen all comes down to Skip. Skip is the secret twin. It's not Buffy, it's Skip. But the thing is, Skip has been written out of the will, and his goal is actually to replace the lighter toned pranks with more and more hardcore pranks that get everyone pissed off at Muffy to the point when after it is revealed, they all come back to actually murder her, which is why the whole Nan comes back and slashes your throat actually happens. that was supposed to be real.
Okay, even though that's one more gotcha at the audience.
That's one more gotcha at the audience. But in the script, she was going to have her throat slashed by Nan, who's like, fuck you. You should not have done this to me. And there's just a whole bunch of real murder at the end of this. And they filmed it all, and then they cut it all, with the exception of that, when they reshot the reveal that it's fake.
Yeah, that's interesting because that kind of leaves a big question mark as to, is anybody gonna mention this?
Yeah.
That like one of these pranks went too far.
Right. Especially when the whole prank going too far is one of the big setups here, because on the ferry ride to the island, you have the fake out of Skip getting stabbed in the stomach. Or is it Skip? Or is it, who the fuck is it? Oh God, I'm forgetting everyone's name.
They're all names like Skip and Biff and Arch and
Arch stabs Skip in the stomach. Whoops, that was a fake out. And then that leads to a we killed a townie setup, which happens a lot. It's a setup in the burning and that whole thing. And so one of the dock hands goes overboard and then tries to sling a tie-up rope around an anchor from the water. Who the fuck? This is terrible maritime etiquette. I'm just going to tell you right now, as someone who gave out maritime merit badges to Boy Scouts, don't do this. But that guy gets his face scraped up. That's Buck. Don't worry. He'll come back later completely alive. But it's the sort of unnerving setup of this, of like, oh, we fucked around and now we might end up finding out. This feeling does not extend very long because as soon as they're in the house, they're like, all right, time to be horny. All of the guilt goes away very quickly. The other thing about that dock entry is it's set up with the driver grinding it and finding it into the original dock. You're like, oh shit, dude. You're coming in hot. I've been on a fair amount of ferries that over shorter distances, all that, but very few of them do they come in and grind the fucking quarter of the dock on the boat. Like, you do that too many times, you're not going to have a boat to take across the bay.
just a little toothpick floating across the water.
Yeah, you really, it's hard to sail when there's holes in your fucking boat. So you have a bunch of like, oh, this chair is rigged. Oh, this is goofy. These glasses dribble. Oh, we have fart machines, the whole 9 yards. But this is also kind of a setup for Muffy to do her big transformation the next morning. And that is the one thing that I feel like really, really works here. Plus, we get to see how Hal fills out those tidy whities. I think the light gag is the one visual gag that actually makes me laugh every time.
Yeah.
It feels very funny and semi-original. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. I enjoy that. As a story construction element, I really don't mind the sort of soft launch into the plot, that we live with these characters, that we understand their relationships or non-relationships to one another. And it sets the expectations for the audience for comedy. Unfortunately, they weren't sold a comedy when they came to it, and it just made people angry as a result.
What do you think is worse? A movie in which is sold as a comedy and turns out to be a secret horror movie, or vice versa?
I don't know.
I mean, I don't think it's so fall down hilarious that that you can't also still call it a horror movie.
And for a majority of its runtime, it is absolutely trying to create suspense sequences and have kill sequences that you see those dead bodies after the fact. You don't see a ton of impact when they happen, but you do see a ton of, oh, there's a decapitated head. Oh, there's an emaciated body. Oh, that's someone whose throat has been slashed. There's a lot of setups, very Friday the 13th setups here, that are paid off with people seeing glimpses of dead bodies to convince them that this stuff is really happening. So in the end, the fact that it turns out all to be a ruse is kind of like, yes, but you also came to see a movie called April Fool's Day, y'all.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's right there in the title.
It came out at the last weekend in March. Like, it is absolutely telling you that this thing is a joke. I do enjoy when we see Nikki and Chaz having sex, that it's so tantric that we see a lot of their flesh, but none of their naughty bits. It's just their legs are in impossible positions. They're very stretchy people. Good for them. Skip, who's the secret brother here, ends up off the table. And it might seem like there's a lot of luck involved here. But again, I'm not coming to April Fool's Day for realism.
No.
So he's off the table by day 2. And of course, Muffy goes into immediate disaster mode. It's almost like she's a completely different person. But she's not the only one, because Nan is so genuinely disturbed by the quote unquote abortion joke. She is livid and her entire vibe changes completely.
Yes.
Then we get Hal and Kit, and they have a boathouse sex scene. That has to be a Friday the 13th call out.
You think so? Yeah, I guess I can see that.
I mean, again, if you are going to have sex, why would you ever do it on splintered boards above the water?
No.
And yet, they are the ones who see Skip's dead floating corpse underneath the dock, and then it magically disappears. Then they tell everybody that, oh, where's Skip? What is happening? They go off searching for them. And this is what I wondered, what the fuck, Gina, is Chaz wearing on his body? He is rainering that outfit like you cannot believe. There is a loose-fitting t-shirt with also a sweater vest, a gray sweater vest over pajama pants, but hung very low so you can see his different colored boxer shorts. It's the outfit of an insane person.
Yeah, there's a lot of fabrics happening here.
A lot of mixed patterns. And I know you're relaxing out of the public eye, but also these people have to see you. Why are you doing this? Put on pants, or keep the pajama pants on and keep the t-shirt on, but don't add a sweater vest to this accoutrement.
Yeah, that's like an aesthetic choice, because you don't put I mean, I have certainly put on a sweater while wearing pajama bottoms and a t-shirt, but a sweater vest does not keep anybody warm.
No, and I don't really know that it's the point. It's some sort of visual contrast thing, and it's also just the wildest damn outfit in a movie filled with wild damn outfits.
What do they call those? Where you have like the pictures that are, it's like 3 different pictures and you can like move a tab to like
right.
There's a phrase for that?
Is it a triptych? But that's just 3 of the same pictures. Yeah, what is that called? Oh Jesus!
There's a phrase for it. It's gonna fucking kill me.
Listen, someone's yelling into their phone right now how stupid we are, and you know what? That I feel is audience engagement. You can tell us in the comments.
Yeah, please.
And I won't remember what you're talking about. We do too many of these things.
Seek us out on social media and tell us
please
what this thing is called.
It's the biggest mystery in this entire mystery film. And so this is also the sequence in which Muffy/Buffy is called out by Nan, asking what the fuck is the deal with this. And Hal Jr. overhears this. And there's genuine surprise on her face, because that's not one of the gags she actually set up. That is Skip's secret plan. But of course, that really never comes to the fore, because that section of the movie is just surgically deleted.
Yeah, see, I think they would go back and maybe change that a little bit.
I think a modern movie absolutely would, because it's so out of step with everything else that's kind of happening that it's just not the kind of move that Muffy has been showing anywhere else, and it feels needlessly cruel. Or it's entirely they try to play off as unintended, But what would the fucking intention be for you to just have that playing in her room regardless?
Exactly. Oh, you know what it is? Believe it or not, it's called an exquisite corpse.
Oh, okay. There we go. I thought an exquisite corpse was a story that you hand off to somebody else.
I think it's kind
it's
of
both.
Yeah, it's pretty much both. Yeah.
Okay. All right. You learn something new every day. Don't tell us in the comments now. No, tell us anyways, so that other people who will hear this later will go, yeah, we heard. So then we get Arch out looking for Skip, ends up in a leg snare, accosted by a snake. Again, an entirely Friday the 13th coded gag.
Like I would go so far as to say this movie might was maybe suffering a little bit ahead of its time.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's attempting a tone that really hasn't had its day in the sun. There are other horror movies that are obviously horror comedies that are trying for something. They're trying for that mix of creature feature and comedy. And obviously there were early slasher parodies, our beloved Student Bodies being first and foremost. But sadly, that movie in the third act decides we need to solve this mystery. And I keep yelling at it, stop, don't. You were doing so well up until this point.
Bring back the horse head bookends, damn it.
So that Arch gets taken off of the playing field. And then we have a scene in which Hal Jr. is still trying to get into Nikki's drawers. But the way he does this, I think, strains credulity, because I don't believe anyone on planet Earth has ever gotten laid after saying, I really want to plow your field.
No.
No. If you're flirting, you failed. You've gone beyond flirting to just weird, please stay over there territory.
Yeah, one thing I some of the reviews of this movie when it came out, upon release, were a little harsh.
Yeah.
The New York Daily News deliberately spoiled the ending. they disliked it so much that they spoiled it. But some pointed out that like these characters are sort of shrugging off the horrible things they believe are happening to their other friends one by one, and continue going about hooking up as if nothing's going on. It's a curious choice.
It is.
And one friend's death is gonna put me off of sex. Two friends' deaths, I'm like starting to figure out how I can get the hell off this island.
But trying to get sex out of the woman who discovered a decapitated head and a body that's throat has been slashed. That I think is a real Mission Impossible scenario.
And on the other hand, there were and continue to be a few horror movies in which when once even after things get cooking, and the monster shows up, there are couples that still steal away to go get it on while they have some time to kill.
And speaking of Student Bodies, the only line of dialogue missing from this is finding bodies in a well. That turns me on. So the body in the well is Nan's and the head is Arch's. They then get a phone call from the sheriff that reveals that he is visiting Buck in the hospital, and he's been there all day with Muffy. Now, Rob takes in this information, but it doesn't seem to fire a synapse within him that says, how is that fucking possible? He never mentions this information for the rest of the film.
Nope.
He just takes it in and does nothing with it. He should not go to medical school.
You can kind of hear it like a very soft, almost kind of like sizzling sound of a candle going out in his brain.
Just it is the egg hitting the frying pan, but no one turned on the gas.
or like the egg misses and kind of like hits the edge of the pan and goes into the burner.
Yeah, it is revealed that he wanted to go to medical school, and the college counselor's like, I don't think that's for you. And I'm on that guy's side.
Have you considered perhaps becoming a stripper?
Just have you considered making your body your business? Perhaps a male prostitute of some sort.
You know, we have some literature on being going on the joining the sugar baby track.
Sex work and you, how keeping an older lady entertained can be both a pleasure and a viable business. I cannot believe he receives this clue and is like, nope, not going to tell anyone. And why did Muffy think he would be the one to not tell anyone that again, we're not coming to this movie for realism, but this stretches it quite a bit.
Oh, no, this is a classic, like, the minute you think about it too much, it's like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah. I also would say one of the more confusing elements of this film, and this is sort of a behind-the-scenes thing, is that the soundtrack here is very Ghostbusters coded. There's a lot of funny theremin happening. And what we're getting isn't Ghostbusters style visual comedy. So it feels slightly out of place for what the movie this is attempting to be.
Yeah, it does sort of feel like they were unsure that the audience was going to get that this is supposed to be funny.
And for Sony, their idea is, okay, you have horror elements and you have comedy elements. The biggest, one-to-one here is the movie that made us all the money just 2 summers ago in Ghostbusters. But these are very different motion pictures. And I hadn't quite noticed how Ghostbustery it is for no particular reason.
Well, that was the vibe.
Yeah. Then Kit discovers the Muffy Buffy kid pic on the desk. And so now this seed of twins has been planted twice. But she doesn't say anything to anybody else. It's like they're just waiting for more evidence. When you've seen something that is obviously your friend has a secret fucking twin and you're not going to tell anybody about that? Okay. Also, Hal Jr. has brought a gun because of course he fucking did. But when you invite a Texan to your surprise murder mystery weekend, how did he not shoot anybody? I also want to say, Kit in this movie is dressed like an 80s woman stand-up comic. Like she is one fedora away from an HBO half-an-hour special. She is sauntering around the back half of this movie in a button-up shirt with loose tie.
Yeah, she's about to tell some like jokes about hot flashes.
She absolutely is. Just how disappointing men are and how terrible it is to try on bikinis. All the Kathy themed favorites are going to come forward. So the scene that we were alluding to earlier, where Roner is still trying to get into Deborah Goodrich's pants happens here. She exits at one point and he's just lying on the bed with this S&M mask on. When she comes back into the scene, he's not moving, mask still in place, hands over penis. And I'm just going to say it. We just talked about Blood Beach, where a rapist gets his penis removed by a sandworm, and it's blood everywhere. And here, a guy gets his penis removed, and there's just like a dribble. But he's dead somehow? Like, there should be a lot of blood. You're not going to cover up that amount of blood with just 2 hands.
Yeah, they like that. They bring a mop and bucket with them.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like a lot of horror movies we talked about require impossible cleanups. And in here, they just don't make it a deal because all the murder scenes are pre-cleaned because they don't exist. But this kind of leaves Kit and Rob to discover the rest of the crew, the clues. They eventually run into Hal Jr. and he has been hung and strung up, I might add. Not just hung, but strung up with his hands behind his back, hog-tied to his feet. It's a whole fucking thing.
Oh, yeah.
And they also discover clues like the Barbie death tableau. which is like a corpse chorus in Barbie form. In the boat that the sheriff returned to the island to discover the explanation of Buffy's mental hospital origin. And whoops, they can't take the boat back to the island because the keys are now inside the house. So they got to go back in. And they get in through the basement window. And this movie literally pulls a Scooby-Doo eyes in the painting gag twice. Once was not good enough. They got to go for it twice.
I love it.
But that is when they discover Muffy's supposed head, which is the eyes behind that painting. And then it's just a real chase movie from that moment on until the reveal at the end that everyone is actually alive. And what I do love about this little sequence is that Rob is still screaming, run, run. Another Friday the 13th thing of a guy in the basement screaming as his life is being taken out of him by Jason Voorhees. But this guy is just screaming for nothing.
He's just like, I don't know what else I could do. Maybe I should scream for my life.
Yeah, he's not really focused on himself for the most part. He's actually screaming for her to run. But even still, I think the constant Friday the 13th self-reference at a certain point does more damage than it does help.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can pay homage. There's certain points like, okay, now you're just parodying the whole thing.
And so it is revealed to Kit that this whole thing is ruse. Rob is eventually released from whatever weird closet he's in. And we get a party sequence afterwards. At the end of this, I think we are starting to find some clues of horror comediness. If you're going to really bring comedy, it has to be character-based. And I do think they have characters. What I don't think they have is a funny screenwriter who's really good at character-based jokes.
Yeah, I mean, everybody is very game.
Yes.
Particularly the male actors. I think that they are all, if anything, some of them are trying a little too hard to be the, there's like, you can only have so many dueling comic reliefs.
Right.
And I think, certainly Arch and Chaz are they're essentially the same character.
Yes, and slightly different skins.
Right. They're, one's more like a preppy jock, and one's kind of, not quite a punker, but, sort of,
new wavy.
Yeah.
Hip.
Yeah. But they're still like, the goofy, horny guy, except that Arch is clearly gay and isn't ready to admit it yet.
Right. Yes. No one can be leaning that hard into that stereotype.
Arch is living in Vermont with his handsome bearded husband today.
Yeah. And we're happy for him.
Yeah,
honestly.
he's doing great. He's doing great.
I love that for him.
He has called everyone up and apologized for quote unquote joking around with them.
Mm-hmm.
He got it all up his chest, and he's free now. Arch is free.
So, what we have here is, weirdly enough, a choose your own not death venture.
I was going to say choose your own not venture.
Yeah.
Choose your own life venture.
And yeah.
Wait, how about this? How about the choose your own joke venture?
Choose your own joke venture. So of these what turns out to be non-deaths, what would you choose to be pranked on you and why? Up for bid, we have knife to the tummy, fall into the bay. You could have your face smashed into a pier. You could be strangled in the boathouse. You could be snaked, snared, and beheaded. You can have your throat slashed and ringed in a well. You could have your penis removed. And apparently that's all it takes. Throat slashed, hung, decapitation, and Scooby-Doo painting eyes placement. And what is your choice, Gina Ray?
Well, obviously I can't take Chaz's way out. So, I do like the idea of being a Scooby-Doo painting.
Okay.
So I'm gonna take that.
Yes. I mean, the decapitation is going to be fast.
Yeah.
And then the way you're found is fantastic.
Exactly.
Yes. The amount of Mission Impossible face replacement work is on almost a Happy Birthday to Me level.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've got this friend who does special effects makeup. And it's like, and they're coming to work in like an island Airbnb.
Right. Yeah.
You should be.
Well, if you're this good at it, you've been drummed out of the business for a reason. But okay, sure, why not? It's going to be hard to replicate. These people, you had a ton of pictures and visual reference for. I don't know how he's going to do it going forward, but it didn't seem to be a problem for him, at least in this experimental version. And for me, oh boy, I certainly do not want my face smashed in a pier, and I don't want my penis removed. Decapitation and Scooby-Doo painting. That's a real 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
I do not want to be ringed in a well. That is not for me, everybody.
No.
I don't want to be in dark places for the rest of my life and only be released when somebody watches a videotape. All right. Well, let me tell you something. Come find us on Patreon where we have plenty of cool bonus episode content. It's really fun stuff. And we have so much of it for you to explore that is exclusive to the site, so much more than we'll ever release anywhere else. And of course, rate and review us on your podcaster of choice. Talk back to us on Spotify or YouTube. Try to outpace the goofs who don't realize what a podcast is on YouTube. It's become quite dire over there. It used to be funny.
They don't quite understand that we are not actually showing the actual movie.
Yeah, I don't know what gave it away that the New Kids episode we have, not to mention the fact that it is not the length of the movie, also doesn't have the movie art, and once you hit play, does not deliver the fucking movie. Of course, it's people talking about it's a podcast, y'all. I didn't decide to take away Google Podcasts. Google did. They said I had to go to fucking YouTube. What are you going to do? Anywho, we're on your other socials. We're on your Blue Skies, your Threads, your Instagrams, Facebooks, and even on TikTok. Gina, where can people find you on these here internets?
I am Jesus, I can't speak. There's my Substack. It's GinaWatchesThings.substack.com, which I write about movies and television and pop culture. And you can find me, and I've been on Blue Sky that much recently either, but I'm generally there under Gina Does Thing.
Excellent. Do it today, people. Check it out. And of course, sign up for Gina's newsletter every week. It's fantastic stuff. I enjoy. It's a mystery to me, and when I get to read it on Friday mornings, it makes me very, very happy. Now, Josh Hollis does all of our artwork. Go to RevengeBodyMemphis at Bandcamp.com to find this theme and all of the remixes. Don't worry, folks. The body count and hilarity will continue. For myself and for Gina, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.